Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're very glad to be able to resume our monthly film screenings and discussions around this, in this new format. Post-screening discussions have always been important for us as a way not only of opening up conversations around issues presented in the film, but also to better understand the process of and language of filmmaking itself. If you want to receive updates on future screenings and discussions, please do register with us. For those on Zoom, the link is in the chat box. And for those on Facebook, the link can be found in the comment section of this video. The film we're discussing today is Sikri Masanai by Subhashri Krishnan. The upside of these online discussions has been that the larger team associated with the film are able to join the conversation and provide perspective as well. So today, in addition to Subhashri, we also have Paromita Dhar and Amit Mahanti. Both of them have worked as cinematographers on the film. We're very happy that Hansa Thapliyal has agreed to do this conversation with Subhashri, Paromita and Amit. Hansa Thapliyal is a filmmaker, writer and artist whose works have tried to move between different ways of telling stories. She's an alumni of the Film and Television Institute of India. Her diploma film, Ji Karta Tha, traveled to festivals in India and abroad, and also features in the 2 DVD set from FTII called Masterstrokes, featuring a collection of special student works from across the years. She has worked with needlework and photographs, and her work on Srinagar called His City, collaborating with a photographer from Srinagar, is housed in the permanent collection of the Accademia di Visionari at ELT in Bergamo, Italy. Her writings have been published by a small experimental press in Australia called Start Press as a booklet called A Shelter Called Writing. She has worked extensively on the early history of Indian cinema in Kamal Swaroop's Phalke project and has been a co-writer on Tracing Phalke, published by NFDC. She teaches film and sometimes textiles at film and design schools and also works with Everyday Materials to conduct workshops for agents of Ishq. So Hansa, thank you so much for agreeing to do this conversation. I'll now hand over to you.
Hi, thank you. That was too long an introduction perhaps to someone who's just the interviewer. I'm delighted to have this session with Subhashri Krishnan, who's a filmmaker and also a really passionate curator at Urban Lens and at IAWRT, and she's part of the Media Lab at IIHS. Her work, and I've seen her work over the years, has again and again returned to questions of citizenship, but in different ways and forms, which I hope will be what we will talk about today. So a big welcome to Subhashri and to all of you, and a happy Onam and happy times ahead, hopefully, to all of us. Yeah. To start with, today we are going to be primarily discussing Subhashri's newer film, The Dance of the Butterfly. But I will also touch upon her previous film from 2013, which is What the Fields Remember. Both films have been made in Assam, and that is a point of interest for me. And they touch very differently on ideas of citizenship. So before we start, and it's a kind of unusual setting to do this online. Usually we all watch a film together, and in the kind of combined energies of watching and thinking and feeling each other feel a film, we start a question answer session. But here we are, and we've making the best of the world as it is right now. And I think we've each seen the film separately in our little windows. So I thought that perhaps one way to start would be to show a small glimpse of Dance of the Butterfly. And yeah, and then we'll go ahead from there.
Hello.
ये आप इनका नंबर ले लो।
English, Tamil. I know. I am not Hindi. Not.
Baba her şey okumuyor.
Yeah, in this little excerpt, Subhashri, I think one of the reasons for picking up this odd piece between three scenes is because I see choices, which is like playing Jinki Kamal, correct? Malayalam song played by a Tamilian filmmaker among a bunch of young people in Assam. Then those beautiful images of them going into the evening groves, which really stays with me. And then we see them in Kanchipuram, and they've come to perform their the traditional dance that they are trying to revive in a competition in Kanchipuram. But before they do that, they must encounter the world of Kanchipuram, and the world of Kanchipuram must encounter them and put them up in a matha, I think, and get them to meet the Swamiji and send the girls in first and all that bewilderment. So what I feel is that these are very small and unusual and particular interventions and choices. The decision to play that Jinki Kamal for this young group which is practicing something else. The decision to decide to take your shoot to Kanchipuram where this young group travels. I've been thinking of the idea of politics and the politics that shape our film, but more importantly, what shapes our politics. It's not like we already have the correct politics and then we just go and reproduce them on a film. That would make life easy, and unfortunately often does. What I was thinking of a story, of a small essay that a filmmaker friend had written. And she had said that, you know, all the stories that she heard from her father as a child, she had forgotten, you know, but only some stories came back to her. And so she'd written that maybe the stories we remember are the stories that we still haven't understood, and they stay with us and we keep, and I think sometimes maybe we don't give enough emphasis on the reason or on how special our own life experiences and curiosities can be in directing our politics, our films and work. So I personally felt a curiosity about how come Subhashri Krishnan has made 2 films in Assam and is about to make her third. And the little
In
bit that I
Assam.
have in Assam, yes, a third in Assam. This is a 4th film, but the 3rd in Assam. And I was wondering whether I know since then that you have spent some time as a child in Assam, and you were very young, but they were fairly affecting years, and I presume some years of incomplete stories. What I wanted to know is that those affections, or how did it, or did it help you make certain decisions about what to make a film about? I mean, in retrospect, did it make a difference to, and also to how you went about making your films? Like, I sense there is a certain tenderness of gaze when you look at people, and almost a certain tentativeness. So yeah, would you link some of this incomplete story for us so we know where this oeuvre is coming from? Some of
Wow.
it
Okay.
is coming from.
Thank you, Hansa. Thank you for agreeing to do this conversation. And thank you actually. So for those of you who don't know, I'm also part of the Media Lab. So this is very special in some ways to be having this discussion, and also somewhat awkward. But thank you to my Media Lab colleagues who said, why shouldn't we be showing this film and talking about it? And also a very happy Onam to everybody. I have resisted not eating Onam sadhya today. I already had it yesterday. So anyway, so to come to your questions, I mean, I see various strands in what you're asking. So let me try and break it down. So the first thing is, well, you didn't ask it in this manner, but why Assam and how come Assam? Well, I mean, I have spent a brief amount of time there as a child. I'm not a child, I was between age 8 to about 11. And I used to speak, yeah, yeah, I was like, I don't know what the right category is. I used to live in this place called Tinsukia, which is in actually Upper Assam. So in fact, when 1983, when the Nellie massacre happened, I had some vague memories as a child hearing about it. But I also do think, I must be honest and say, it's not as if because I lived in Assam, I, as an adult, decided that is the place I want to work in. No, I mean, it didn't happen like that. It was more like there were some larger ideas about, it sounds very large, right? What does it mean to be a citizen in this framework that we call the nation state, which is such a big thing today that we speak about, not just in the context of India, but all over the world. And these were generally ideas and also notions of personhood that comes through, that is seen through documents. So these were ideas that I was largely interested in and have been for a while. So, and Assam is a place where I feel like, which is a melting pot of all these things. But coming specifically to how I started working in Assam I remember in 2006, and this is something I've spoken about and written about as well. There was this article in Tehelka by this journalist from Assam called Teresa Rahman, who had written this piece on, when the Nellie massacre happened, I have some vague memories and then I forgot about it. And then I read about it in 2006 when there's this piece of how, I think 28 or 27 or 28 years on, how people were trying to cope. And then I was like, oh my God, I was like, I was perhaps there as a child, and there were these vague memories. I remember calling my mother and asking, do you remember such a thing happening when it happened? And then I was trying to kind of read things about it, around it, but not too many things at that point existed. And that kind of piqued my curiosity, right? Like, why is it that something that with all its complexity, as we keep hearing in anything and everything in Assam, something so terrible and tragic that had happened that it was almost like a footnote in some ways in the way we understand history. So this was 2006, and tried applying for proposals, and I'm terrible at proposal writing. So in 2013, I got commissioned by the Public Service Broadcasting Trust to make the film, and well, the film got completed in 2015. But just to also tell you that when I went back, so also, I think this is something I was telling you privately. We moved from Assam, I think in 86, 85, 86, 86, but we used to have familial connections. So it's a place to Guwahati. I kept going back to, my parents had very close friends. So when I went back in 2014, February, to start the work, it didn't seem, it was familiar. I had forgotten Assamese by then, but it didn't seem so distant. It was vaguely familiar, even though we lived in Tinsukia, and where I was filming was around Nelly, Jage Road, Guwahati, which is in a different part of Assam. And then I finished making What the Fields Remember, which was what it was, and then I went back to Assam in 2018 January, actually, to follow up on What the Fields Remember, which is the film I'm going to make next. Questions around citizenship and being that I couldn't quite have it in that film, because that was a very different film for me, and especially in relation to the NRC, which had started in Assam by 2015. So I went back in January 2018, and I was staying at the Action Northeast Trust, the ANN campus, which is in Romari in Chirang district. And I was using that as a base actually to go to other places around. And one evening, I encountered the Sifing Harimu Afad practicing in the campus. And I must say it was magical. And I keep using this word very often. I think many of my friends who are here on this list have heard me say it ad nauseum. But there was something about the space and the music that was so life affirming that at some point I decided perhaps that film, and I think I must also say emotionally, I was not ready after What the Fields Remember to make the film on NRC in Assam. Today, I'd like to think perhaps I am. And I decided, and again, that was, I had got commissioned by, again, Public Service Broadcasting Trust to make that film on NRC. But then I told them, look, I don't think I'll be able to make this, but I can make this film. And that's how this film happened. But that's not, I haven't answered your question about what you're, I think, speaking about is this idea of fragments, right? I mean, you see the sequence. I mean, for those of who I mean, I'm assuming everybody here has watched the film. And if you've not, basically, this is a film that travels with, actually goes through the rehearsals of this troupe called Sifing Harimu Afad, who are trying to revive live dance and performance music in Chirang district, which is in the Bodo Territorial Autonomous District. And part of the reason that sequence is structured like that is, and Paramita Dhar, who's here, and I also realized the editor of the film, Bhamati, is here, but she's not in this list, she's in the other list. But how, I mean, so there's the sequence in the film where, and part of it, you saw a glimpse of it, where basically, what are these young Bodo adults doing, right? What does it mean? Because I also feel sometimes we use our gaze. My gaze is about looking at the world in a particular way, but what are they doing? They're coming. This is a space that's a safe space. They're practicing because it's a lot of fun. So I think this whole idea of cultural revivalism is a term I'm using because that's how I see it. And it's a lot of fun, and in fact, and Paramita, perhaps you could add, in fact, there's this, we were shooting in a gazebo area, and there was this conversation happening once the camera was shut off. You know, we always talk about what's in the frame, but it's actually what's outside the frame as well that's so interesting. And we were just chatting, and I remember Paramita and the sound person Costa were there. So we're talking about, okay, what sort of music do you listen to? Because I was also like, these are, I mean, the true members of the troupe are also people who live in this world. There's a way we're all part of the modernity idea also, right? Whether in music and what we use. So I was like, what are the kind of films that you watch? What is the kind of music you listen to? And somebody said, well, Malayalam, you're speaking to me in Hindi, you know, that Malayalam song, Jiniki Kamal. And of course, Paramita, do you want to just share or add? We were just like, let's film this. Do you want to say something, Paramita?
Hi, everyone. I remember that moment extremely clearly because it was, I mean, it was, I think, right at the end of the shoot, somewhere near the end, because we had spent so much time with their rehearsals, and we were almost like we knew the song by heart and all of that. And suddenly to have this Malayalam song and realize that, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, these guys are young. they are listening to, and they have mobile phones and they have access, the internet, everything. So they were really excited by a lot of other songs, and yeah, it was a moment where the three of us just looked at each other and we were like, we got to get this moment, which wasn't planned at all. So it was, yeah, and it's there in the film, which you
yeah. And in fact, the next sequence that you see, which is this long take, this again, Paramita, Kaustav and I were actually standing outside. The shoot had ended. And they were just, it was, they were walking, and it was actually Paramita's idea. She was like, let's film this. It's just this thing of they're walking, and we do this, right? Consciously and subconsciously, somebody is pulling somebody's hair, somebody's in a cycle, somebody is just, it's over and they're moving. And then of course, you see in the film, the next sequence is in Kanchipuram and something else happens. Yes, Paramita.
And also, I think also what happened is because we were there for a long time, I think rehearsals are always ritualistic, right? There's this happens and then this happens and then this happens. So we became a part of that dance, like, because we were there almost every evening, every morning with them. So I think those kind of observations, it just blended in together at some point. And that's when, you know, the ritual of leaving, the ritual of coming, sometimes just sitting and taking a break, all of that was just intertwined, I think, in the dance itself.
I think, I think that I find that shot extremely beautiful, that extreme long shot of them going, and that evening sort of, you know, and then the girl jumps onto the boy's bicycle and you can see it in the distance, and and then waving and tugging at someone's hair. And this is also what I was trying to little bit refer to, is that the film, instead of a film is not an illustrator of your politics, as letting someone into how your politics are being shaped as you make. Meaning something shifts because you're working with people, and now they are not just these, you know, now they're not just symbolic sort of stand-ins for what's happening in the Northeast to young people. Are they singing or dancing, or they're all miserable, or, you know, but something shifts. And I think that shift is what makes the film really special. So we have Paramita.
Just 1 second.
Yes.
Sorry. We also have the editor of the film with us, Bhamati. So do jump in, Bhamati.
Bhamati, please join. And also Amit is here,
Amit,
who also shot some of this film, and also shot the previous,
and edited it as
and edited with What the Fields Remember. Oh, it'd be great, actually. Yes, so we have a bounty of riches. So please sign in and show yourselves. And we shall go on to the next question. So I thought we'll see a small clip from hi Bhamati. We'll see a small clip from What the Fields Remember, and perhaps try and draw some connections between them. So if we can.
যখন এই 79 থেকে আরম্ভ হয়েছে, হচ্ছে 83 থেকে পুরা গন্ডগোল। কপিলী নদীর দুইটা একটা ডেড বডি সব সময় গেছে, কিন্তু ওই দিন 83 সনে 83 মেসেজ হয়েছে, ওই যে আপনি নিয়ে গেছিলাম কিলিং আর কপিলী, ওখান তো ডেড বডি মারাটা সেখানে বেশি হয়েছে। যেদিন ওরা মরে, একটা মেয়ে, এটা দুঃখর কথা আর কি, যেটা আপনার ভায়োলেন্স, যেটা আসামের যে বিদেশি খেদাইতে লাগে, এই রুমি তার তলের আমার যে মেয়েটা, এরাও প্লে কার্ড হাতে লিয়ে ভায়োলেন্স যোগ দিছে যা বিদেশি খেদাইতে লাগে। কিন্তু মরবার মুহূর্তে যখন তার প্রাণটা বাইরে যায় আর কি, সোলটা বাইরে হয়, তখন এই রুমির তলে যে মেয়েটা ছিল, তখন হচ্ছে বাবা কি আমরাই কি বিদেশি নি? ওইগুলি সিন যখন মনে হয় তো দুঃখ হয়। আপনি কেমনে বলবেন এগুলি ঘটনা?
আপনাকে জিজ্ঞেস করব
হ্যাঁ, যে আমরাই কি বিদেশি নাকি তাহলে? তারা যে আমাদের এমনি মারলো, এই মুর্মু মরার সময় এই সবগুলি সিন আপনি কেমনে বলবেন? হয়ে তাই প্লেগার্ড হাতে নিয়ে ভায়োলেন্সে যোগ দিছে, যে বিদেশি খেদাইতে লাগে, প্রশাসন। একটু আগে জিজ্ঞাসা করলাম একটা ছেলেরে, যে না এগুলি এমনি থাকাই ভালো, যা হয়েছে তো হয়েছেই।
আপনিও এটা ভাবেন?
না,
কেন?
কেন হবে? হয় অকস্মাৎ সাডেন, সে অ্যাক্সিডেন্টগুলি আপনার হয়, এটা সাডেনলি হয়ে যায়। অ্যাক্সিডেন্ট শব্দটাই এটা একটা আলাদা শব্দ, অ্যাক্সিডেন্টলি হয়ে গেছে। কিন্তু তার বাদে আপনি চিন্তা করেন, যারা আমরা মারতে আয় মরছে তারা শহীদ হয়ে যায়, আমার জন্মভূমি, আমার ইয়া, আর আমরা কি নরকে চাইতে লাগবো নাকি? এই জাজমেন্ট, যারা আমাদের মারতে মরছে, মারতে তো মরছে, 2-4 জন মরছে, না মরা না, এরাও মরছে, কিন্তু তারা শহীদ আজকে। তা আমাদের পাওয়ার তেলে মাটি কই?
So since we have two camera people and two editors of the film here, I thought that what I find extremely evocative and moving about this film is, like I said, the tenderness of the gaze that is on the person who is before the camera. And I think the shift from the idea of citizenship, which happens in Subhashree's first film, to this film, is that landscape and people enter, and people in their landscape. Like you go to them and you see them in their landscape. Or in the new film, The Dance of the Butterfly, where again, you see these young people in their landscape. I wanted to ask both the camera persons and the editors, actually, that in your choices of framing such difficult narratives, what decided your distance from the subject? What decided how much space you gave the landscape in your frame? And as editors also, how did you work with the landscape as a presence? Even in the first clip, when those young people are going away into the grove. So it seems to me that returning to these landscapes has really made us feel the films and made us feel the people and a sense of their lives, not just of their not just of a testimony, but of the testimony in a place of life where life must carry on. So if Amit and Paromita and all three of you, sorry, all of you could talk about how you worked with landscape and people in your framing, in your editing. Or what were you searching for in your frames or your edits? What were you searching for?
Perhaps Amit, if you can start, because we just saw the clip of What the Fields, remember, was shot by Amit and also edited by him. So perhaps Amit, if you can start first, that would be great.
Yeah, well, I think it was like an extremely, extremely difficult film to shoot. I mean, considering that you're kind of, harking back to a very painful memory of 30 years back, and how do you kind of talk about that in the present? I'm sure like Subhashree as a director was kind of had many more questions around this and how to even represent this. So Well, I don't know. I think the landscape kind of, I don't want to call it a metaphor. I think a metaphor is a very, I think it's kind of, kind of just creating a very kind of, we just found an image for something in the present, which actually it's very difficult to find an image for in the past. So in a sense, the landscape kind of became a kind of fabric or a terrain through which, well, I would say one was kind of transposing a lot of the accounts and the testimonies that one was hearing, and therefore then trying to derive a kind of meaning, a meaningful image out of that. So I don't know, this clip that you saw was that particular river in which Sirajuddin ji had lost a lot of his family members. And I remember it had been very difficult shooting with him all through, because he was not never wanted to come on camera. So that kind of made it very difficult. I think this interview which you saw was, I think, the very last schedule, I think it was like the last 1 or 2 days of shoot where he finally said that, okay, I'll be on camera. I'm not saying that was a kind of handicap until then, but it kind of, I think by then he was also kind of okay with the idea of coming on camera and talking about it. So I don't know, the image kind of shifted then, that suddenly one had to kind of deal with this thing. Okay, now he's suddenly, after these 2 long shooting schedules, he's now willing to be a part of that image. So how does then one kind of, kind of create that linkage between him and that landscape and that universe within which he lives, which actually on an everyday basis, it's just full of a very painful memory, So I think in that sense, the landscape kind of became a larger canvas through which to actually filter, the emotions that we were kind of going through, I think, while working on the film, So then one was just kind of very intuitively, I think, seeking certain images. Some places had kind of physical references like this river, but at other points we also shot the landscape and we shot many like fields and things like that. But actually physically maybe nothing had happened, but I think we were transposing the imagination of that moment onto the landscape in that sense. Yeah.
And if I could just, and especially particularly in reference to what the fields remember. So in fact, when I had gone for my first research trip, Amit had also joined me at a later point. And the one thing that we were both struck by was the absolute stunning beauty of the landscape. Assam is a really beautiful state, many parts of it, but also for me, and this is something Amit and I kept speaking even before we went, there were 3 schedules of the shoot, even before we went for the first schedule, that is there a way, because many places are the sites of violence. I mean, that information is of course not there in the film and we consciously chose not to give it. But is there a way that one can bring in a sort of forensic imagination to this landscape, right? Where, and it's what Amit said, because for us, and you are going 32 years later, right? You are asking people to share some of the most painful memories of their lives, and we all have various ways of dealing with it, coping with it. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd open myself out like that. So we were very conscious of that when I now think back of this thing of how do we even frame the people we're working with, and the landscape then became a way of actually pushing the narrative. Not just, I mean, one was in the filming where we shot extensively, but also in the edit actually, and the soundscape that you hear in the film. I mean, they were all working with each other. But yeah, Paramita, do you want to respond to the question of landscape in?
Also because yes, again, differently and similar. I mean, it's
it's kind of my obsession, also to some extent. But yeah, if you want to speak, you are on mute. You're on mute.
Also, yeah, editors also here, no?
Yes, of course, afterwards.
Yeah.
So for me, one thing that was very special is my own connection with the landscape, because I was born in Bongaigaon. My dad's from Guwahati, my mom's from Tripura, so Northeast has been home. We used to go there a lot as kids. My dad's originally from Bangladesh. So there was a lot of things, and I had sort of, growing up, I had moved to Bangalore, and as an adult, I stopped going there, like when I could make a choice. And my parents used to drag us for holidays during our childhood. So when Subhashri called me, there were many layers of excitement in terms of working with her, working on this project, and we were discussing 2 different projects. But returning to Assam was also extremely special in that way. I went, I think, after 10, 15 years, I can't even remember. One was that, and then the other thing was the film was about dance, and dance itself is something very special to me. I love, I mean, I've always said if I wasn't a camera person, I would love to be a classical dancer. So in that way, it was the merge. I have always believed with the camera, I'm dancing all the time. So it was the merge of two ideas of which are very personal to me. And and we did the first schedule. Like I went with her on the first schedule. So it was a new place. So we did take, I think we decided that in the first few days, we will not film and we will just sort of understand the landscape, the atmosphere, the dance and everything. So I think that way, at that time, it really helped merge all of these aspects together. And I think a lot of things also happened spontaneously because there was rain, there was thunder, there was, I mean, as and when things started unraveling, we just kept sort of adapting and working with it and adding it to the film. I mean, and then obviously the editor has to, with the editor, it gets decided whether it's kept or not. But we kind of kept the landscape in mind and filmed it with the dancing and all of that.
What do you remember yourself looking for, Paramita, in your frames? Like, what were you searching for in your frames?
I mean, for me, it was the first time I was working on a film which was about dance. So there were a lot of challenges. Normally, the kind of films I have worked on are in a very different sort of spectrum. So it was a new zone for me. But I think I remember talking to Subhashri. We had a lot of conversations before. And I remember I wanted to capture the dance itself in a way where we'd had a lot of, I did do that one song, I sort of rehearsed it in my head so I could remember the beats and that thing. So it was like, so the camera could be sort of dancing with them at some level and not just place it. Because one thing I could have chosen to do is just place it in a tripod and which also I've done. Both were something I wanted to experiment with. And yeah, and a lot of things were new to me in terms of the lot of details about the politics, about this place, the Bodo tribe and all of that. I discovered it during the shoot. So in that way, that was all of that was blended. I don't know, Subhashri, you want to remind me of something or add something?
No, Bhamati also.
Yeah. I think Bhamati should speak, and there is something I want to say. But Bhamati, do you want to just speak about
what you were looking
to edit
for?
this film? No, just kidding. But yeah. Reflect.
No, I'm actually caught by what Paramita just mentioned about dance, because this is the first time I'm also I had the opportunity to edit dance and music, and kind of really, because so much of editing is really like connected to the rhythm of things. And even I used to learn dance when I was younger, and I feel like that is really kind of really taught me editing in many ways. So it was really an exciting piece of work to work on a film which was about dance and music. Going back to speaking about the landscape part, like for this film, for me as an editor, it's always the cue of like, what is the emotion with which the filmmakers come into the, while they're making the film. And I think I had seen What the Fields Remember, and when I looked at the footage, I already was kind of sensing that this was a very entirely different mood of a film. And then speaking more to Subhashri kind of confirmed it more. So what I was looking for in the footage is, the film was shot by 2 camera people, and it was a very dynamic camera throughout. And I think what I was focusing on is, what we were focusing on, Subhashri and I, on the edit, was to sort of see so much of this film is not about performance, but about rehearsal, and rehearsal in like, the play between rehearsals, during rehearsals, what that space looks like, where they're comfortable with. And then another layer onto it, which Subhashri wanted, was to say, also what the space was also speaking in terms of politics and graffiti. You see, it's always there. So that was the thing that we were focusing in terms of space, how these young people were interacting there. And in that sense, that is also my favorite shot of the film, which is after they have had their rehearsal, they're all going back to go home or go wherever, and it's like this long idyllic shot, and it really sort of captured the film for me. Actually, it's in a shot I had to kind of the film. It is that, and also establishing the space, and here the group was like the character for us, and we did kind of try to, Subhashi and I did about setting up the space in such a way so that when they go to Kanjipuram, it will seem like a little bit of a disjoint. So those were the things, those were the kind of questions and ideas we were thinking about when we were looking at space and editing.
Yeah, if I may just add, which both Paramita and Bhamati have spoken as well, is the two things. So the first schedule that I went for, which was in April 2000. Hello, am I audible? Yeah. So the first schedule that we went for was in April 2018, and which was during the whole Baisagu festival. So we actually decided to go see the troupe performing in different villages and different spaces. But I think Paramita and I, the first few days, we were just watching the troupe perform, following them. And I think we pretty soon, we realized that that we would actually change the strategy of filming. And I was pretty sure after the fourth or fifth day that this was not going to be a film about about the final performance. It's actually going to be a film about the rehearsal. Actually, if you see the entire film, the final performance is only in the last the last sequence of the film, and the night performance, for those of you who watched it. And the reason for that is because I feel like, this is the analogy I can give. I feel like the performance is like a finished film. It's like what you see. It's what you've all seen of Sikrim Wasanai. But a rehearsal is where you see, I feel like, the edges. So it's not just when they are rehearsing, but it's also leisure. It's also how people interact with each other. It's also how the space. So we, and some of it was stylized in the sense was we did request the troupe. So usually they come to the campus, inside the campus and inside this closed gazebo kind of space, and they perform. But we did ask them to perform outside the campus. We did ask them to perform outside the stream, to also kind of, it's not a very conscious thing, but draw a relationship between this is where they come from and this is the land. And I think, so that also determined in some ways how it was framed. And in the edit, this is something I know Bhamati and I struggled with, because on the one layer was about the rehearsal and what is the relationship with each other. So there's not, again, a lot of information about what is this music, what is this form, and all of that. If you're coming to look for that, you will not find it in this film. But there was also the whole Kanchipuram experience, right? Where there is this desire of young adult Podos. They basically were participating in something called the Hidden Idol contest. And they went to Kanchipuram, and a set of events happened, which I will not go into now. And we could not film actually then performing. And I thought it would be kind of interesting to see the whole, I'm using these words. I don't think if I spoke to them, they would say that this whole inside outside kind of experience, what is that like? And so that was another layer which was in the film. And the third, and I can see Samina has also asked a question around it, and we can come to it, was I, again, was not making a film about what is the politics of this struggle for Bodoland, right? Or what is the politics of the Bodos and their own struggle against caste Hindu Assamese, and where does that desire to have your own state come from? And right now there's an autonomous district with, there are 4 districts which are part of BTAD. So film was not about that, but I also felt very strongly that you go to a place, these are things in the background. So in some ways, the way you experience it as well, except for that one sequence, the 2 sequences where I'm directly asking Jennifer Liang about the board and you see the martyr's grave, it's always there. consciously and subliminally, but the film's not about that. And I think for me, and that's why I think for me, the question of how do you represent, right? When we, and this is something, Hansa, you and I were talking about, that the minute you say a place of conflict, right, or a place of violence, there are these automatic ways in which we have image associations or how we think about it. It's not like I don't. But I was like, is that possible to look at the idea of beauty as a form of politics and not just blood and violence? So I think that's the reason why also, and this is a question I've been asked by many of my friends. Why is it that you don't, there's a suggestion about the Bodoland politics, but you don't take it front on? Because that's not how I experience the space. That's not how, when I had individual conversation with members of the troupe, I experienced the space. And I felt that if I didn't experience it like that, it should perhaps not take that form. Yeah, I went off on another tangent somewhere.
Yeah, I think that, and this is linked to a question that Samina is also asking, so I'm probably going to join the two and then go ahead. I feel that when we make films about states that lie on the borders of political map of India, so to say, we tend to have this approach of carrying a kind of partly a mainland guilt, which of course has a lot of reason. Yeah, with reason. But at some point, and I was discussing this with a friend, is that the guilt should not become self-serving. You know, it should not be like, oh, I'm feeling so bad, so bad, and that becomes the film. Yeah, and in that process, sometimes the people in the film don't get the space to be themselves, perhaps in a full way, for want of a better term. So what I wanted to ask was, and at the same time, how can you shy away from these matters? I mean, if I see what the fields remember, yes, I mean, that it is required to be able to talk of things that we've conveniently erased from our consciousness. And at the same time, to find a kind of, again, image making and what you say about beauty, that allows for the sense of hope and a sense of persistence of life, perhaps. If not hope, then a sense of persistence of life. So I think Samina's question is that she says, in the first half of the film, and I'm just opening it out to the audience here on, in the first half of the film, there is a sequence of everyday work images over the music that ends with the signboard that says, "No arms." I feel that it's pointing towards the possibilities that lie in art engaging with a fraught world. But apart from mentioning a little bit in text and asking the question about the board, you have chosen to stay away from the political story, the political conflict story, I mean, because there are, of course, other politics in the film. So you've chosen to stay away in a direct way from expressing the politics of what is happening within the world of that film. So I think that perhaps in conjunction with your previous film, it seems to say, I sense a narrative. Within the world of your film, how would you answer this question?
No, I mean, I think that's very right. I mean, Samina, and thank you for asking the question. And this is something I've struggled with. I mean, I struggled with during the making of the film, but definitely during the edit. Bhamti can testify to that, because I mean, it's couple of things, right? One is the kind of films I've made have been of a particular kind, and also there's this idea of what do we mean by a certain form of political filmmaking, and by which we've all been influenced by, whether in the context of India or place outside. But I just felt that in the context of this film, I had to respond to how the people of the troupe themselves articulated to this idea of Bodoland, all right, or the struggle for Bodoland, which is still in some ways an unfinished question, if you think about it. I mean, there is, of course, BTAD now. And it's not in the body of the film, but in private conversations, I know that. And I felt that for many of the young people, at least the ones I encountered, there is a certain pride in being Bodo, and that pride is actually represented through the music, the dance, the culture actually, or the clothes you wear. And there's an assertion of that, right? And which is what the films try to represent, that form of politics of Bodo land through a certain cultural representation. That's what the film is. But the other kind of thing that Samina, you're asking in a more direct way, I was tempted to, in fact, there was another version of a cut which had more of that, but I just felt that it wasn't working. It definitely wasn't sitting with the body of what the experiences of the troupe and people who in it were, and how they were articulating the music and their relationship to it, or how they were embodying it in the footage or in the body of the film. So that's why it's not there.
Also, that your films, I was thinking, are not do not seem to be looking at the moment of agitation or the moment of, I mean, variously, insurgency, counter-insurgency. I mean, these are, this is the language that sometimes we also take refuge in, because now that's become our accessible language. But the films seem to be looking at the time after, where life still has to be lived. You know, like there's a terrible, of course, irony of what Sirajuddin ji says about those young girls who carried the placards, went into the procession, and then subsequently, yeah, discovered that they themselves were being treated as outsiders. So there seems to be the beginning of the opening of space for these other conversations that are happening if you're a person there to talk about. Like looking from here, we look at the agitators and those who are not the agitators. So those simplifications, there is a possibility of them disappearing in the world, say, of your films. And in the second film, very differently, about again a kind of construction when it's kind of half done, or all, you know, the agitation is going on as is, but in the meanwhile, how is life to go on? I mean, I wonder if I'm articulating it in a way that you even agree with, but whether the politics, I mean, yeah, whether politics needs a broader telling of what is political. You know, I mean, for us, our language of politics, and whether these films are somewhere trying to get to there. Do you feel that your politics are articulated differently subsequently?
I'm not sure. I mean, so yes, it's true. I mean, whether it's the last two films or the film before that, which was called This or That Particular Person, which is actually on the idea of identity documents, and Aadhaar, it was called UIDA then, by which, I mean, that was a film, I don't mean to say before times in a pompous way, but what I'm saying is Aadhaar hadn't become what it is today. Right. So I've never quite seen it, this thing of before and after, but I'm not very, how do I say it? I'm not very, through my film practice and work, I'm not very, it's not very interested that when things are happening then and there, I'm not somebody drawn to that very naturally, because that's not my idiom or my style. But having said that, I mean, so I'd like to go after, because I also do feel, and what I'm saying is, I mean, everybody knows we are filmmakers, we're not journalists, and what is your place? But having said that, the next film that I'm working on, which is called Shadow Lines, is actually very much about the present. It's about the debates around citizenship in Assam, and in that context, the CA, the anti-CA thing in Assam. I'm not looking at the rest of India. So it's actually going to be the first time I'm going to be working on something that's happening now, and it makes me very nervous, because you have to find a language to be able to be in that moment, because it is about here and now, which means that will also determine how you shoot and the form of your film. But I've never quite thought of it that way, but yes, yeah.
And perhaps, I mean, these films are like a journey leading you to that next, I mean, next difficult film. There's another question from Juhi. What is the process? And I think this is addressed to the camera persons as well as Subhashri. What is the process of making a person comfortable with being on camera, especially when the subject is so traumatic? How did you manage to bring this tenderness and sensitivity to your gaze? and avoid intimidation or anxiety in your interviews in reference to what the fields remember?
Bhanti, do you want to go first, or should I? I mean, I must say that, I mean, and I'm speaking in reference to what the fields remember. It was a very difficult film to shoot, and a lot of it is to do with Amit and who he is as a person. Because a camera is not just what you're framing; it's so much of your being you bring into how you shoot a film. And Amit and Julius, who was the location sound person of the film. A lot of it has to do with Amit, and also an intuitive way to understand when do you turn, how do you frame something, when do you turn something off, and when do you turn something on. I'll just give you a small example, and then Amit can continue. That sequence and shot that you saw in the clip with Sirajuddin Ji sitting by a river, he didn't want to, the earlier 2 schedules we'd gone, he told us, you can shoot the audio, but I will not let you film. So many times in the film, you actually see him in a distant way. And in fact, we keep showing him the frame. We went back to the river because on the 3rd schedule, when we had gone to shoot the prayer meeting, the annual prayer meeting, and we went back to shoot in the river because we just wanted to reshoot it. And suddenly he said, okay, fine, you can interview me now. And I'm somebody who I like to be prepared. You know, of course, it's not like you have 7 questions and you'll ask A, B, C, D, E, but I like to know there is going to be an interview today. And I was actually completely taken by surprise. And I think it was Amit who kind of, he said, let's take 5-10 minutes. And he said, why don't I just frame him? And we had a discussion about it, and Amit can speak more about it, frame it against the river. That was completely him. And I think there's a way the camera was placed and you see his profile. And I think in a way, I think it was filmed. And that is the only interview, which is about 25 minutes we shot with Sirajuddin Ji. There is nothing else we have of him on camera. That also, I think, made him open up. Amit, if you want to speak more.
Yeah, I think it was kind of, it was very challenging with him. But yeah, so for that particular interview, we have, like Subhashri just said, we kind of had a quick discussion. And also we didn't want to, that okay, suddenly he's telling us you can shoot an interview, and you know, you suddenly like go and you're like, okay, come on, we are finally getting that interview which we've been waiting for. You know, one had to decide that, okay, you still want to kind of frame it in such a way in which you're still respecting that thought that man had, that he didn't want to be framed, but yet now he's willing to be framed. So how do we kind of place the camera in such a way in which it is there, but it is not there? So therefore you see that it's a very kind of clunkily side angle kind of a frame, you know, that kind of a thing. But by contrast, the other person who was a very strong presence in the film, Khairuddin Ji, he was somebody who wanted to be framed. So with him, actually, these questions of, because he wanted to tell his story, he wanted to show us his documents. Let's see, I'm a legitimate person. I have all these documents from my father's time. You know, so why is everyone doubting me right now? So literally, he was literally wanting to enter the frame all the time. You know, so which actually, it was kind of a very contrasting kind of a situation, shooting with both the people who are there in the film. You know, so with Sirajuddin, you have to kind of tread very carefully. Even so, we shot a lot of footage around him in his house with his family. You know, shot him from a distance, which he was okay with initially. So, but with Khairuddin Ji, for example, the other person, it was very, very different experience. He wanted to, you know, we had many more front-on frames because it was almost kind of a, no, I want to tell my story, and this is how almost he was dictating how he wanted to be filmed. So yeah, I mean, to respond to the question of how does one do it without kind of intimidation or, you know, whatever, you know, taking too strong a kind of the camera becoming too present there. Yeah, it was kind of a very different situation in approaching both the people who were there in the film. Yeah.
I just want to also, this question of tenderness of gaze, right? This is something people have said about what the fields remember and Sikri Maswina. And I think, Juhi, to answer your question, that is something, I think it's a testament to the people I have worked with as well, whether people who shot the films or edited. Because so much about, at least in the way I work in films, people work differently, is the people you collaborate with and the gaze they bring to it as well, apart from your own. So I think I've been lucky that I've worked with people who were on the same page. I don't know if I've answered your question. I think Arvind had sorry, Hansa.
Yeah, is there a question that
I think some from Arvind Narayan. It's a question from Facebook by Arvind Narayan.
can't seem to. Would you read it out if you don't
yeah.
know? Subhashri? I can't seem to.
Very moving clip of Sirajuddin ji. I understand the imperative of the film as what Kundera talked about, namely the struggle of man against power is a struggle of memory against forgetting. But do you also think that there can be something as too much of remembering which makes living impossible? In fact, when Shubha, I'm also called Shubha by friends. In fact, when Shubha said that she needed to do something different after what the fields remember, she seems to indicate the difficulty of too much remembering. How does Subhashri think a filmmaker can find a line between too much remembering and too much forgetting? Okay, it's a meta question, and thank you, Arvind, for asking that question. And that this is something that I struggle with, and also some friends and people around me. I've had huge arguments with them about this. I don't know what the answer to it is, right? Because I do think in the context of India, in the subcontinent, not just India, the very creation of the Indian nation state was founded in violence. We all know this. And there was partition that happened in 1947. And of course, in 1971, India was not part of it, but East and West Pakistan, there was another partition of a very different kind. And you speak to people who've been through that history and violence, and also in the case of Assam as well. There's a way people have dealt with it, and you don't actually see physical manifestations or memorializations of these things in our country when you compare it to perhaps in the German context, for instance, the Holocaust, which was a completely different context. So, so I do think that, so there are two kinds of things, right? One is a kind of structural memory, right? So in the context of Assam, why is it that when you go to Guwahati, and in one of the main parks called the Nehru Park, you will see statues of who you call the martyrs, the jo shaheed hue hai, of the All Assam Students movement. But till date, as far as I know, and I could be wrong, that the people who passed away in the Nellie massacre, or other kinds of violence actually you've seen in Assam, whether in BTAD and everywhere, you see not too much memorialization of it in the context of the Nellie massacre. And I think that is to do, that memory, that kind of collective and institutional memory is to do with how power structures work. So that's one kind of thing. And so at that level, I do think it's important to remember, because it's not just, it is about a certain form of acknowledgement, and you see that in other countries, right? So there are various forms of acknowledgement, and a certain memorialization is one way. But there's the other thing, which is of more private memory, right? How much do you push? How much do you remember? How much do you not? How do people cope with it? And I actually do not have any answers to it. All I can say is that when you go to shoot, I think everyone knows what a certain ethical line is. A lot of it is also intuitive, right? When people ask you to speak about process, there's some choices where you know rationally why you did what you did. But I think in a private way, there can be no how do you do it, because I think people just deal with things differently. But I think, Arvind, I think the problem is there is too much forgetting here. We need to actually think and remember more. That would be my answer.
There's a question from Paromita Vora.
Right.
And it's kind of interestingly connected, I think, even to what Amit earlier said. Like at the moment of shooting, you also sense that your own, like you're looking at the landscape is your own way of coping with that moment of listening to a person's testimony. Yeah. So, I mean, it's so the political documentary becomes a more complex and complicated thing. So when she says that is the need to empty what is traditionally defined as political documentary of its schemas and effort, also to redefine what we designate as political. And if so, do you have an imagination or desire of what another redefined political documentary form might be? I mean, I think this is a question for all of us, and it's something
Yes.
that's coming off. Yeah. So,
So,
yeah.
do any of you want to go first? I mean, I'm happy to, but since I've spoken so much.
Oh, Subhashri, come on.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, Paramita, for that question. If I've understood what you're saying, do I have that desire to look at what the idea of the political documentary is, right? So because we come from a certain tradition of what the political documentary is, and my answer to that would be yes. And again, not to sound immodest. The way What the Fields Remember was shot and edited was an attempt to go in that direction. I would also say the way Sikri Mosanai was shot, edited, because for me, it is about cultural revivalism, but I see it actually as it is a political documentary to my mind, right? Because we have this very clear definition of what politics is and how should that be framed. And to my mind, it is, Sikrini Maswanai is an attempt at that. It may have worked or may not have worked. It's an attempt to relook at the idea of political and to think that can we, and especially in the times that we're living in, right? I mean, can we think of beauty? Can we think of this idea of something that is life performing and that is very essential to our lives as a form of performing politics and as a way of being? That's the attempt. I don't know how it will be for my next film. I mean, I just want to give an example. It's completely not to do with my film, but I watched this weekend. I mean, I'm sure many of you here have watched it. Ava DuVernay's 4-part series called When They See Us, which is about the trial and the life after of the 5 men who were falsely incarcerated in the Central Park 5 joggers case. And it was heavy, it was deep. It was quite, as I was telling someone, terrifying to watch, but also strangely rewarding to watch it. And I'm very glad I did. But I remember feeling extremely burdened by it and extremely like, what is this world we're living in? Because it's not just about race politics in America. You can connect it back to what is happening in our country today. And on Saturday, I decided I wanted to watch something that was really like, you know, quote unquote lightweight and fun. And I mean, this is not like an ad for Masaba. I was like, let me just watch Masaba. And I really liked it. And I liked it because it was very sweet. It was very charming. And it had a sort of politics which was unself-conscious and was about the everyday. And what I'm trying to basically say is that there are different ways in which we can imagine it. And I think, unfortunately, and in the Indian nonfiction space, there's a gambhirta with which only we speak. And Paramita, your films are a testament to the fact that one can break away from it. So yeah, that's my answer. But anyone else wants to add?
Yeah, I think that it's a very, very important question and interesting question. But I don't know if I'm answering that, but I think it's not just, at least for me personally, I'm also working on a film right now. And I don't think I wake up saying I'm going to make this film and it has to be politically like this or that. It's just what you want to say, how you want to say it. And if it is honest and personal, somewhere it sort of seeps through. Because if you have an idea of what you want to leave your audience with, or what are the, so I don't think one can define it can be like this or like that. I think also it's very interesting for me that her first film to this film, there are these different forms and different ways she's explored Assam, and I'm waiting for the next one. But yeah, I personally do not believe in boxing things, and you can see that in my body of work, is this form saying this, and there's a lot of other emotions and senses and bodily experiences that we are going through on an everyday basis when we are in shoot, or you're your personality itself comes through in the film. As a filmmaker, who you are will show. So there's a lot of layers to sort of define or box a film in one way or the other. I don't know if I made any sense, but yeah, it was just a thought.
Bhamati, Amit, anything?
Yeah, sorry, Amit. I'll add to that. Actually, I agree with both what Subhashri and Paramita said. Also, the thing is, sometimes it's, I imagine as a maker, you're also responding to what the time that you're living in and the kind of energy or the kind of word, something formative that you're probably seeking. And that is also, if you're not kind of making a film about what are your needs, I'm not turning the camera onto you because that's a different form, but you still have certain what you end up leading or putting the threads in the story that you're telling. And I also kind of am in favor of not kind of boxing it, because then to sort of experiment the different articulation of politics will become very difficult, because you'll spend too much time second guessing the possibilities. And that would be a loss, because at this point in time, especially, we need to kind of keep it open for explore the idea of being political, the idea of representing politics. And yeah, like Subhashri said, for us in Dance with the Butterflies, Secretary Masana, it was about just, you know, like looking through the footage, even the sequences. I think like we spent so much time looking through the footage of the farms and the instruments. There is a certain quietness which was very silence, personally for me, which I did want to engage with, you know, and I think there should be space for kind of thinking through films in that way.
I think the signal is a problem.
Necessary.
I think we can't hear
Sorry.
very clearly. Yeah.
And now?
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry, my internet is pretty poor, but yeah, I kind of came through.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think broadly we are talking about creating more space for a diversity of forms within the political. If Masaba is sweet and a good indicator of the possible diversity, and yeah, sometimes the high-mindedness which can become an empty gesture if we are not able to take it further. Okay, any more questions? Okay, so perhaps we could end with the last 2-3 minutes of the 2-3 celebratory minutes of Dance of the Butterfly, and some of the things that we are talking about. Is there a possibility in beauty and looking for a different form? Yeah, I mean, there's much to learn from watching others dance. So let's see the third clip. Okay, thank you so much. I think there are many reminders just in that clip itself of new directions and new possibilities that perhaps we're going to have to engage with. Yes. So thank you very much, Subhashri, Paromita.
I just want to also say that the ending with the white flag, and that's why, because in the edit, you see the two flags being unfurled. One is a BTAD, which is the Bodoland flag, and the other is a white flag, which is about peace. And but yeah, so it's good we're ending today's discussion, especially with the last clip, because for me that white flag also signifies this lies a clues to what is the future. Perhaps all countries of the world will someday, if there is a country, these flags. Thank you.
And also I think that the idea that how necessary it is felt, how necessary beauty is, and how necessary that peace is, you feel it more intensely because you know that this is in the place where there has been a fight for Bodoland, and I think that makes it our understanding that much richer. Thank you so much, Subhashri, Paromita, Bhamati, Amit. Thanks a lot.
And thank you
to everyone at IIHS. Yes, at the Media Lab. Yes.
Yeah. As they say, apne ko thank you nahi bolte, but thank you really to my colleagues at the IIHS Media Lab for saying we should show this film and getting me out of my cocoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the audience
and to everyone
and happy Onam.
Who joined. Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much, all of you. Shubha, Paramita, Amit, and Bhamati. A special thanks, Hansa, for agreeing to do the conversation and making it so rich for all of us. Thanks to everyone who's joined on Zoom and on Facebook for your questions and your engagement. A quick announcement, the next film we will be discussing is called That Cloud Never Left by Yashaswini Raghunandan. September 2020. The film link will be available on our social media channels a week prior to the discussion. If you have registered with us, we will email these details to you. Otherwise, you can follow the IIHS social media handles for updates or register with us if you haven't already. The registration link is in the chat box on Zoom and the comment section on Facebook. Thanks,
and
everyone.
just to add, no, I just want to add that, one second, yeah, I just want to add that the film we're screening next month, That Cloud Never Left by Yashaswini Raghunandan, has also been shot by Paramita Dhar, who co-shot this film. So perhaps you'll see her again next month. So thank you.